Hello and welcome back to another episode of Bantz Lawrencia. How are you all doing? I hope you're doing great. Now for today's episode, I want to talk about Jasmine, Mr. Ibu's adopted daughter. Jasmine is raining fire and brimstone on Mrs. Ibu and in fact the whole family and some of her friends. Now for some of you who don't know, Mr. Ibu, John Okafor, the legendary comic actor, he has been sick. He lost one of his legs. Jasmine came online and cried out, seeking for assistance because according to her, she's the only one footing the medical bills. She's tired, she's broke. So Nigerians rallied around, helped, raised money, and at the end of the day, one of his legs was cut off because Mr. Ibu had blood clots in one of his legs, and he was taken to a traditional medicine kind of people who made incisions, cuts on his legs, and that cut was infected. He was flown to Lagos and his adopted daughter Jasmine took responsibility of the whole thing. Before then, Mr. Ibu and his family were having issues, which they came online. They aired their destiny in public before he even became sick. But when he became sick, they came together. Jasmine was kind of trying to help him revive his career. She was on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. She did a lot. I mean, I give kudos to her. She did a lot because anybody creating content would know how it's not easy. Even if you see 2 minutes video online, it's not easy. A lot goes into that content before you see that finished product. So she did a lot for him and for the family. Now when he became sick, she said according to Jasmine, she was the one taking care of him and everything, and then she cried out online. Plus with the support of the wife, they raised a lot of money. According to Jasmine, it was over 100 million naira that was raised, and they couldn't fly Mr. Ibu abroad because they said he had his heart condition was, they couldn't really fly him abroad because of the whole health challenges. When this whole thing was going on, Mrs. Ibu wanted access to the account. Now according to Jasmine, even before the whole thing, they had separated, they were living apart. Mr. Ibu was living for over 2 years. He never lived at home. He was in Abuja, sporting from one place to the other. People were taking care of him, and the wife was just in Lagos. She was in the house. She was selling off all the cars in the house to raise funds to send the kids to school. According to Jasmine, one of the reasons why they were having issues was because Mr. Ibu was no longer working. So he wanted the kids to go to a less expensive school, but the woman was like, no, my kids will have to attend this school, get the money. She was selling off cars, selling off properties. At some point, she sold the land. She sold the land. She was even demanding to sell the house that they were living in because according to her, there was water leakage and everything. Anyway, that was the whole issue going on online, even when Mr. Ibu was in the hospital. So when that money was raised, the money was paid into Mr. Ibu's account, but his son was in charge of the account. Now the wife, who they have, according to me, Jasmine, they were already living separate, but she came into the picture and wanted to have access to the account. Mr. Ibu said no, that the son should have access to the account. The wife was not happy about it because according to Jasmine, she wanted access because she need money, she need to do BBL, she needed to buy Brazilian hair, she needed to live a baby girl life. Like she said she's young, she needs to live her life and she need money to do that. In fact, at some point they said she wanted them to sell the house and settle her with 20 million, or is it 25 million, so that she will just go on her own and he will go on his own. More like a divorce settlement, basically. Mr. Ibu, she could have sold the house according to the story, but because she didn't have the documents of the house, she couldn't sell the house. She was trying to convince Mr. Ibu to sell the house. At some point, they wanted to sell the house before this whole health challenges started. Anyway, according to Jasmine, she was doing everything. She was feeding the family. The whole money they got from TikTok was sent to Mrs. Ibu. According to Jasmine, after they sold the land, she needed some money to, I think, after they gave out over 1 million naira, she needed 12,000 naira. So Mr. Ibu was like, why would you need 12,000 naira after I've given you 1 million naira? That was when Mrs. Ibu came out and cried online that Jasmine is dating her husband. Jasmine is like, it was crazy. At the end of the day, when Mr. Ibu was in the hospital, they raised all this money. She wanted access to the account. She couldn't get access to the account. That was where she started making all those stories about Jasmine sleeping with Mr. Ibu. Jasmine married Mr. Ibu's son. According to Jasmine, she said she wanted to travel, so she was processing a visa, so she wanted to help the son, so they had to do a dependent visa. And for them to do a dependent visa, they had to, Nigeria, like anybody traveling in Nigeria, they know all these things. So even though the Mrs. Ibu wanted her to take one of her child, but she said the girl is grown, that there's no way that she can convince people that this is her daughter. So I think that kind of rubbed Mrs. Ibu some kind of way, and then she came out online and was saying everything. Mrs. Ibu arrested Jasmine, saying that she stole, was it 300 million from the monies donated. According to Jasmine, all Mrs. Ibu wanted was access to the money, because Mr. Ibu's second son, is the one in charge of the money, but she wanted full access so that she can be taking money out of the account. But they went to the police station. The police people kind of said, okay, we are going to be in charge of the accounts. Any money you want, we'll give you the money. From then on, according to Jasmine, Mrs. Ibu has received over 25 million from that money. She said she wanted to rent a place. They gave her 20 million. She rented a place for 4 million, and then she used that money to buy Brazilian hair. Oh Lord. she was using the money to live a bigger life. So now Jasmine is saying that she does not know why Mrs. Ibu is trying to blame her or accuse her of anything, because she is not even the one in charge of the money. That Mrs. Ibu brought police to arrest her. At the end of the day, they checked everything. She did not take any, they couldn't trace any money into the account. But according to news online, police PRO said that they traced some money. Like, I don't even know who is telling the truth. I think the police will come out and give us a public announcement. Kind of what is going on. What is going on with this money? Who is to blame? Even Jasmine saying that the police are tired, because every day Mrs. Ibu is going to the police to demand one thing or the other, even when they were now in charge of the money. All she wants is just to have access to the money. There's a phone where the online app is, where you could have access to that money. She wants to have access to that phone, and that phone is with Mr. Ibu's son, but she wants that phone. That is just what she wants. Anyway, what Jasmine is now saying is that they used her. They do this, they did that. I am just going to play a clip from that video for you to see how she was ranting, raving and screaming. Now watch this.
He was limping. He was using crutches when he came to Lagos. Even my entire family were afraid when I brought him to the house. But I still took that risk. I housed him. The next day, the wife was talking about selling the property that he was supposed to sell before he traveled to Abuja. That they should sell the house and sell to her. I was the one that called the wife friend. I said, please, if daddy is selling this house as the wife was, let him sell the house. Let him and his wife reconcile. Let me and the friend, I told the friend, come, let's reconcile these two people in our best way. Because myself, I had plans to travel. I wanted to travel. I already started processing my travel. I already done everything that they need to do for me to travel. Even before daddy was sick. I told the friend, I cannot continue taking care of daddy. I can take care of daddy from a third party, but I cannot sit down and be doing the things his wife is supposed to do. Look after him, cook for him, wash his clothes, and all of that. Then I had the friend, myself and the wife friend, we had a conversation of the phone. I still have that conversation. Even if I don't have that conversation, I'll find a way and trace that conversation and get it. The wife friend was not like, okay, I will talk to her, but she has already told me that she's done with the marriage. Even when daddy came back in that condition from Abuja, she said she was not going to. But this thing I'm telling you is not so many months ago. This was just barely how many months ago? This was around October, around the time daddy fell sick. I'm done with my travel. They know that my travel has nothing to do with this donation. Really, boys, Mr. Wife, you know. You begged me to travel with your own daughter. I told you that I cannot prove to the embassy that your daughter is my child. You said you wanted to travel, and I told you that I'm going to help you. I'll give you the link to the angels so that they can be able to do your travel. Why are you not painting it that I'm trying to use donation money and travel? When you know the truth, and you have children, and you know the truth, and you come outside to sell lies. Even the person that did the show and took your husband to Abuja and took your husband to where they used something and cut his leg. You have never for one day and come and say anything about it. They did a a show, you did not give him 1 naira. You never come out for him and say, oh, my husband need a show in Abuja. If you really love him and you care about him, you did not pay him for the show. But you are dragging me. The same me you were chatting, even when the man was in the hospital, the same me that took him to the hospital. You're the one that took him to the hospital. When daddy came back from Abuja, you said you wanted them to sell their house and settle you. I was the one that discussed with Auntie Ogadima so that you and daddy will settle. I took daddy to Auntie Ogadima's house. Daddy refused to come to his own house. I took him to Ogadima's house. You know that you begged daddy. Daddy said, okay, he has forgiven you. That was my doings.
All I can say is I understand the fact that Jasmine feel indebted to Mr. Ibu. According to her, she lost her dad when she was very young, and Mr. Ibu stepped in and really treated her like a daughter. Even the family knew, because according to her, her dad and Mr. Ibu, they are very good friends, and the mom came from Enugu State, so they I think the same village, I don't know, but she said the whole family, they kind of knew each other. But Mr. Ibu stepped in and stepped up when her dad passed away. So when he started having challenges, according to her, she was in Cyprus, and that was in 2019. So she was there, and Mr. Ibu started asking her for 5,000, 10,000, 15,000, 50,000. He was thinking, you are Mr. Ibu, you are the legendary actor. Why are you needing all this, small, like 5,000? Like, seriously. She said she was in school, but sometimes she would borrow from people when she doesn't have that money to send to him. It got to a point when she wanted to get married to her ex-husband. They came back to Nigeria. She was like thinking, okay, let her stay and set up some things. And she said she took responsibility. She was feeding the family. She was taking care of the kids. Mr. Ibu was living with her. Then she didn't have any problem with Mrs. Ibu, because according to her, even at that point, the marriage was over. They were talking about divorce. What held the whole thing together was because of Mrs. Ibu wanted Mr. Ibu to sell the house, and they shared the money as divorce settlement. But Mr. Ibu was refusing to sell the house because he said that is his property. So even before this whole thing, according to Jasmine, this whole marriage was over. So she stepped in as a stepdaughter or adopted daughter to help the family, because she felt that Mr. Ibu helped her when she was in need, when her father passed on. I understand feeling indebted to somebody, feeling that, okay, this person helped me when I was in my lowest, I have to help the person. But helping people, you have to, it's not about giving. A lot of people think, I am helping because I am giving money. I am helping because I am taking care of certain bills. I am helping because you called me and said you don't have rent and I give you rent. Helping goes beyond that, because if somebody is asking for help, if somebody is calling you asking for 5,000, 10,000, the problem is not that 5,000. You give the person 5,000 today, they're going to come back and ask for 10,000 tomorrow. And then you're going to create like enabling behavior where that person will not go out to seek 5,000 or to look for a job that will give them 5,000. They will rather sit down and depend on you to give them that 5,000. And then it becomes, a habit. Once you don't give them that money, it becomes a problem. I think this was the situation with Mr. Ibu and the family. Mr. Ibu felt that he's been telling the wife to take the kids to a less expensive school, but she was not listening. She was busy selling cars, selling everything, and she was able to afford that money. But when it was getting tough, Mr. Ibu was borrowing 5,000, 10,000 from everywhere to be able to take care of the family. So when Jasmine came back, she stepped into that shoe. She was not the one looking for money, and Mrs. Ibu was just sitting down. Before you help somebody, ensure that that person is ready to help themselves. If somebody is telling you, give me money for school fees, my children, they are home, check that, okay, how can they afford the next one? If there is no way they can afford the next one, then tell the person, it's either you start work or you start a business, or you do this or you do that. If that person is not willing, to adjust their situation, come to the realization that, okay, we can no longer afford this or we can no longer afford that. If that person does not do some adjustments, then you're just going to be giving your money, and then one day you're going to come out and be crying like Jasmine online, saying that she was used or saying that somebody is ungrateful. The reality is, anybody that is not willing to help themselves, regardless of how much you help them, regardless of how much you give them, regardless of how you think you're saving them, you cannot save anybody. That person must be willing to save themselves, because it will get to a point where you will no longer be able to do that. Maybe not because you don't want to help, but because maybe your situation changed, your financial condition changed, and you may not be able to give the way you were giving before. What happens at that point? Before you start helping people, let's say somebody's coming to me now and say, I don't have rent. I'll look at the situation. Okay, why don't you have rent? Why can't you afford rent? Is it that something happened to make you not to afford the rent, or what happened? You have to understand why. We all have had financial challenges. That is not what I'm saying. But there are people who are just dependent on people. Let's say you know that your financial situation has changed and you're living in a particular area you know you cannot afford. Instead of you to adjust to the current financial situation, you will call people, bring money, help me, you pay that. The next year, help me, you pay that. Oh, school fees, oh, help me, you pay school fees. The child is sick, help me. At what point? Because that person is not going to stop asking for help. It is now you that is the helper or the enabler, or the person with the savior complex that need to now sit down and say, am I being used? Am I being used, or am I actually helping this person? Is this help? Because Mrs. Ibu, she's never worked. She everything they were taking, even when her husband was in the hospital, she still felt that he needed to take care of his responsibility. Jasmine stepped into that role. She was doing it. But now, who got burnt? She got burnt. She is the one crying online. She is the one saying that she was being used. She is the one being accused of everything under the sun. Mrs. Ibu is the wife. Regardless of what she has done, that's her husband. So before you start helping people, make sure that the person you're helping is willing to help themselves. So Jasmine, lick your wound, move on from it. I'm very sure that you've learned your lessons. Tomorrow, if somebody is asking you for help, even if that person sacrificed everything for you, you have to be able to say, okay, I am willing to help, but how are you helping yourself? If they can answer that question, then go ahead, help as much as you want. Or if you have enough money, that's okay. You know that regardless of whether they are helping themselves or not, you are able to do that. As long as you know you will not resent that person. As long as you will not say, oh, you're ungrateful. Or as long as you will not say, oh, after everything I did for you. If you know that you will not say all those things, go ahead and help people regardless of whether they have a plan to help themselves or not. Anyway, thank you very much for watching today's episode. Today's episode is once again sponsored by the Beauty's Wigs. This is a pixie cuts. If you want something like this, get in touch with us and we'll get you sorted. We sell wholesale, retail, and our details are on the screen. Thank you very much for watching today's episode. Please like and share. Thank you very much. Bye bye.